We'll wait a few minutes for some folks to jump in. Make some notes over things here. So whatever we're doing right now is going to record and it'll be on the video later when we upload it. So like, don't be picking your nose and stuff. There's some folks jumping in. Orphan Lady, and that's Miss Mary, of course. Stephanie, B Cross. My phone's like going way fast. Christy, Julia, Maurice, Eddie, River Cats, Paul Coffee. We're just kind of waiting for a little bit to have some more folks jump in with us here. Hey Brian, how you doing, brother? And before we get to going, everybody give a chance for everybody to go and grab them some coffee. Except Ed, I tried to offer him a cup of coffee. What'd you say? Something about, I don't know. I don't even remember what he said. It was something to the fact of it's too late for him to drink coffee.
And I'm like, noon is my cutting off point.
You are not asleep yet.
Yeah. I've had my fair share today, but yeah.
Well, holy crap, that's good coffee. It's my dessert coffee.
Yeah.
My fancy dessert coffee. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do the intro and get it out of the way. Hey, guys, J0, how you doing? I hope all is well in YouTube land. There we go. All right.
I'll catch on. I'm not used to
whatever part of the world that you are in, and my camera is out of focus. So bear with us because, out here in the hills, we don't do too much stuff on our fancy talk box over here. But we're trying. Somebody said if I move my hand in front of the camera, it'll reset the focus maybe. No. Is it still not in focus? Can everybody hear me okay that's joined us already? Does everybody hear us all right and it's still fuzzy? Try to reset it.
There we go.
All right, it worked. All right. So the volume, is everything good as far as the audio goes? Can everybody hear us? All righty. Well, hello, everybody. Good to see you. I know it's been a while, and I apologize, but, it just is what it is. Life happens. And so we're going to kind of get a little bit things caught up here today. This is Ed. He's my neighbor and one of my good friends. He lives just right down the creek from me, and he runs Pratts Greenhouse. Him and his family own and operate Pratts Greenhouse out here on the creek. And we are just kind of going to go over some things that we are doing as far as how we are handling the situation out here on the creek in Lawrence County where we live. Now, I'm going to start the video off with a couple of things. First of all, what we do may not work for you and your community. This is what works for us. This is how our elders instruct us to do things. Elders are important. We'll get to that later. It's just, it's not the end all be all of everything, but this is how we're handling things out here. So these are maybe just be some ideas that you guys can use in your communities or in your families to try to make this whole crazy situation go by a little bit more bearable. Also, I ask that this is not a political live stream. We don't want any kind of politics being thrown in anywhere and any of this kind of stuff. We're not bashing people. Right now is not the time for anybody to be bashing anything for any reason, whether it's politics, religion, any of that kind of stuff. I don't want that here on this stream. Please be respectful in the comments and the questions. And we're not looking to play the blame game right now anywhere in any way, shape, or form. All we want to do is to share information and answer questions and to try to help folks have some ideas on whether it be preparations or what they can do with their families to extend meals or plant gardens. That's why Ed is here, because he is an expert at starting and planting and growing I mean, he's a humble dude, right? He's humble, but the dude literally through his greenhouse and raising plants and selling plants and helping folks with their garden feeds thousands of people. All right, so he got some really good stuff to share with you here in a little while about getting your garden started, what to do. Like we're right now here where we are in Southern Ohio, it will not stop raining. We don't have any plants in the ground yet. We've got some in containers and whatnot, but it's been pretty rough.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard to work dirt. I mean, it's hard to work mud. It's easy to work dirt, but you just can't plant when you're slinging nothing but mud clods everywhere. So, okay, with all that said and aside, hello again, everybody. As um, I'm not gonna, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna talk about like what's happened to me the last couple months. I know it's been a while. We'll just say I've had some health issues. Leave it at that. We're working on it. Everything is good. I'm still here, and we are moving along. Hey, Glow, how you doing? We love you too, sis. Okay, so the first thing that we want to talk about was is the food and the stuff that you have on hand. Everybody knows that the grocery stores are pretty crazy. Even out here in the country, the stores are pretty crazy, man. I mean, there's like a lot of stuff that's not stocked. There's a lot of things that are either being shipped or they're bought up as soon as they hit the shelves. Not just toilet paper, but canned goods and meats and I mean everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Beans. I mean the
We're hearing
stores.
it from everywhere.
God bless them
Yeah,
store folks because the folks who stock the shelves are all tired and stressed out. They can't hardly keep up.
yeah.
But something that I would suggest is, and I will give you an example of something that we did just today, is make the very most of what you can with what you have. Make the very most of it. So an example of that is this morning when I woke up, we had four leg quarters from chickens, which is a thigh and a leg and a quarter. We had four of those. So we could have cut those thighs and legs apart and fried them, and then everybody could have got one piece of chicken, and then we'd have made some mashed potatoes or something on the side. But I decided to do something a little different with that. So what we did was we took those four leg quarters, we put them in a big stock pot and boiled them. And then once they were cooked and they were falling off the bone, we pulled those leg quarters out, which left a big stock pot full of chicken broth and chicken stock because we put a little bit of onions and celery and stuff in it. We pulled the meat off of the bone, and we added some noodles and vegetables to the broth and seasoned it all up and put the chicken back in there off of the bone, and we made just a great big giant pot of chicken noodle vegetable soup that let's see, six of us here, three,
Like nine.
10 folks we fed just tonight on four chicken leg quarters. So we made the most. We did everything we could to stretch that out as far as we could. And those chicken leg quarters and a little bit of pasta and a little bit of vegetables went a really long way as far as taking care of some folks out here on the creek tonight. So that's what I mean by use it to its fullest potential. Get the most out of what you have.
It takes thought. You have to look and see what you have to offer. I know my wife has been really, really working at that. The past couple of weeks, we've been home and haven't gone anywhere. We were pretty well prepared for it, and she has been very, very good at taking what we have and being creative with it. And it doesn't seem like we've eaten the same thing 2 days in a row, but we're very careful about how we use it, how much we use at a time, and it's stretching out really well. We're in good shape. So you have to think about it. You have to work at it, and she's been willing to do that. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's a lot of it goes to just back. I've been preaching a long time. Learn how to cook.
Yeah.
Learn how to cook, how to take raw ingredients and turn them into something good.
Yeah.
Not just something that you just warm up and feed everybody. Because there may come a time when we have to actually cook, from everything. We do it all the time anyway, but a lot of folks, haven't taken the time to learn how to cook. Please learn how to cook. It's very, very important. And like Ed said, get the most out of what you have. You have a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just about surviving. You can actually take,
if
you're willing to really work at it, you can take simple things and actually have good meals that you can enjoy.
Yeah.
Spices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spices.
Exactly. Yeah.
Use some spices, salt, pepper, garlic,
Yeah.
onions, all that stuff is all good spices. And it makes it a lot more it just makes it taste better, and it makes, I don't know, like the chicken noodle soup tonight just hit the spot, man. I mean, it just hit the spot. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Everybody's full, and it also makes you feel good when you can share, what you made with other folks, and kind of take a little bit of a burden off of them this evening. They don't got to worry about supper. That's done, and
It's
here
a
we
good
are.
feeling the less times you have to leave the house and go somewhere.
Yeah,
That's something to be proud of.
yeah, it
If
definitely,
you can sustain yourself
it,
for long periods of time.
it definitely is. Ed and I both have I don't know, we like to take care of other folks. I mean, we would love to be able to save the world, but we can't. But all we can do is share what we do with our folks out here on the creek, because we're just two dudes, and we try to help as many as we can, but we only have so many hours in a day. We have so many hours in a day. So that goes with that. Now, if you have been a person who has been what they would call a prepper, or somebody who prepares, and had some stuff set back, then you can also take a look at your stock that you have and say, well, what can I do, and kind of plan. It always works better when you plan things out a couple of days in advance, rather than just trying to scramble all in one day. You kind of plan it out. So there's an old saying that says, plan the work and then work the plan. So that's kind of like what we want to do. We want to know, well, okay, so we've got this and this and this, and here's what we're going to do for the next 3 days for good meals. That way, when I get up tomorrow, I'm not stressed out about what we're going to feed everybody. So
I got a question if you guys want to answer one.
yeah, go ahead.
All right, John Jones wants to know, do you have ramps in the area where you live?
John Jones wants to know if we have ramps in the area we live. Yes, we do. I don't dig them a lot. I mean, there's a lot of folks that do, and there is a bit of a little bit of a market around here for them, but that's just not something. We grow green onions. There's wild green onions and wild garlic literally everywhere. So that's usually what we prefer to use versus ramps. But yeah, there are ramps around, and if we need to, we'll get out and dig them up, just like we do with the yellow root and everything else that we dig. So it's just one of them things, and that's something else too. Keep in mind. Even in town, there's going to be a lot of wild edible stuff that you can collect just from your yard, and you're walking down the alley or in the park. There's all kinds of stuff. There's plantains and dandelions and wild onions. Several different types of mushrooms are going to be popping up. You're going to have to look to see what you have in your area. Well, I mean, gosh, there's wood sorrel, blackberry and raspberry leaves. Blackberry's going to be coming on in July. Help me out, Ed. You're the plant dude, man.
Yeah. More of a controlled environment plant, dude.
Yeah. Well, you in your area. We've been on these hills for 20 years now, so.
Eating some things maybe we shouldn't have eaten. Lots of things.
You said you weren't going to say anything about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I needed some toilet paper that day. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. So, but yeah, and dandelions, you can literally use the entire plant. You can eat the flower. You don't want to eat it when it's all white and puffy, because I'm not admitting anything, but it's not good. But the greens and even the roots and stuff are edible. The roots, you can grind them up and steep them and make a pretty decent tea. So, and the leaves are a little bit of a citrusy. I'd say they have a little bit of a citrus zing to them, kind of like a wood sorrel. I love wood sorrel, man. Wood sorrel's really good, like a green apple to me. But all that stuff combined, some plantains, some clover, a little bit of this, a little bit of dandelions, and some wood sorrel, and you've got yourself a pretty decent little salad of greens that you can eat, and it's got a lot of vitamins and stuff in it. So everybody just needs to take a few minutes and kind of do a little research in your area to see, what is going on. So, is there any other thing we need to? I mean, even tree barks and stuff, but I mean that's going to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do a whole separate thing about the different kinds of tree barks and trees and stuff. But PC track, yes, it is true, Brad. You should try it. Go to your neighbor's house, do the rabbits, and underneath the rabbits, there'll be all these free Cocoa Puffs. Just get you a big bowl full of them, man, and put some milk in them, and go to town, brother. That's funny. Hello, everybody that is just now joining us. We're just trying to share some information about how us creek folk are dealing with the craziness out there. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Mike Lewis. And I'm trying to see everybody, but my thing goes so fast, man. And you know, the fancy talk box, they all got these little dinky screens. You can't see,
Hmm.
but you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. You guys, y'all got a
This
talk
is my
box.
first time. So
Yeah, and this is his first time, and he's a little nervous. Can you tell he's nervous?
Yeah.
But any other questions right off the bat?
Not yet.
All right. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask. That is why we're here. Ed and I have been talking the last couple of days about wanting to sit down, and do this to try to answer any questions that folks may have for us. But Ed keeps breaking stuff in his greenhouse, and he's got to repair it. So did you get your fan fixed?
No, not yet. No,
Well,
that's still a work in progress.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy Dozier, how you doing, my brother? Billy's a friend he's my homie from the set back in the day, like way back. So, and I seen Uncle Buck's Forge, and I'm going to say hello to Uncle Buck. All right, well, we're going to get into a little bit of garden preparations. I don't have my garden going yet. We've got plants that are in little trays where we, the cedar plants, but I can't get them in the ground right now because it won't stop raining. It's going to start raining again here real soon. Thank God, because it hasn't rained for like 37 minutes.
Yeah,
I was starting to
drought.
get worried there for a second.
Bad.
There. I mean, wow, 30 minutes
Yeah.
at least.
Mm.
So, but we have these little dinky plants that we're going to have to do something with really soon. Or as Ed's about to explain to you in excruciating detail, what will happen.
Yeah, and now is the time. If you haven't started your plants yet, now is the time. Usually in the greenhouse, our plants will progress along a lot faster than what they will for you if you're trying to do it at home, especially with artificial light. Very difficult to get enough light on it, very difficult to get it warm enough for them to come up very quick. So now is the time. In fact, it wouldn't have hurt if you'd be like John and maybe have them up already, because they're not going to grow real fast. So we have a lot of things that are already going. Our tomatoes are ready to transplant into flats in about a week. We do those in plug trays, and we start those out very warm, get them germinated. And it's very important if you're starting vegetable plants inside to keep those warm for a very short period of time and lots of light. Everybody has the same trouble. When the seed comes up, straight up she goes, stretches and flops over. And the problem with that you're going to have is not enough light, too much heat. Once they come up and start to grow, you need to have, if you've got a grow light, that grow light needs to be no more than 6 inches above those little plants, and you need to cool the temperature down. In the greenhouse, we have them on a heat mat, get them started, and once they're off that heat mat, just a day after they germinate and come up, then they're into about a 60 degrees greenhouse. So that keeps them short and stout, but they just got to have that light, and that's trouble you're going to have. So if you haven't started your seeds yet, you need to get on that. Peppers, it'll take you 10 days to get them to germinate. Tomatoes, at best case scenario, 4 to 7 days. So you need to be thinking about doing that, because the clock's ticking. Now's when you need to be making preparations to get your garden out. And I think gardens may be a little bit important this summer. So you need to be thinking about that right now. There's lots of things that you can be doing with your ground to be getting that ready now. It's a little bit late for powdered lime, but you can still use pelleted lime. A lot of times it will incorporate itself into the soil quicker than your regular the powdered lime that you get. So if you know that you have a lime problem, you can still do that, and probably it'd be better than nothing.
Yeah.
So that's
Any
some
little
of the
boost you
things
can
that
give
you
your
need to do now.
plants.
That's
Any
right.
little boost you can give your plants.
And one tip that you're going to have, if your garden needs lime, one of the quickest things you're going to see is blossom end rot on your tomatoes. If you have a black spot on the bottom of the tomato just as it's ripening, that is lack of calcium, and the plant can't take the calcium up because the pH is not right in the soil. So that's going to be one key little trick that you can kind of watch. If you've had that trouble in the past without a soil test, you know that you need some lime. But of course, it's best to have a soil test done to get that, to get it precise.
Well, not everybody can do a soil test, Ed.
No, that's right. So you kind of have to learn to watch these little simple things. Yeah. And that's one of them that you'll see.
So another thing too that I've heard, and if your tomatoes, you're always going to have certain plants in your garden that are going to come on first. So your first tomato plant that starts ripening tomatoes, if you have blossom rot on there or your tomatoes rotten on the bottom, somebody told me that a little bit of Epsom salt.
Or I'll tell you the best trick I ever learned. Years ago, I had the same trouble, and you'll have this trouble in containers. If you raise tomatoes in containers, you're constantly leaching and you're constantly changing that pH because you're having to water so much. So you're going to have that trouble in containers. And the best trick I've ever learned is Tums. You can put 3 or 4 Tums,
Really?
either dissolve it up in the water it in, or place it around the plant. And I've done it in the garden also. Tums is almost pure calcium.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
it will dissolve and help about as quick as anything. I've used it myself, so I know it works.
Can you use powdered calcium, like calcium?
Yeah,
Chloride or
yeah,
what?
and you can use calcium nitrate also.
What about
Yeah.
calcium hydroxide?
Not sure about that one.
Okay.
Not sure about that one.
Mary had asked if we can use powdered calcium, and he said that you can. So,
Yeah.
single mom of 3 lost her job. Veronica, can you finish? Can you find out what % chance will my plants have with growth just sticking them in the? Can you read that?
Yeah,
I didn't
with
catch
just
that.
sticking them in the ground.
Okay, say that again, please.
She wants to know what % chance you will have with growth if you just stick your seeds in the ground.
Just sticking your
You'll
seeds in
have
the
to do it
ground.
late. Yeah, that's something that a lot of times you won't see things germinate, and this is the trickiest part about farming or gardening. The hardest part is the wait. If you can get in a hurry and you're not going to gain anything. So, but yeah, that's very possible. I've had tomatoes to volunteer seed in the garden, and I'm sure a lot of other people have too.
Yep.
So yeah, it's very possible, but they won't germinate until the ground temperature gets warm enough for that. So you'll have late tomatoes.
Was that your question? Did we answer it, Veronica? I mean, if you're a single mom of 3, we want to make sure that we get your question answered to the best of our abilities. Again, we're just dudes. We're just country dudes, and this is what we do. So we're not the end all be all. Don't be running and saying, "Well, yeah, it works," and so we got to do it because it's not. Because I've tried it before, stuff he told me, and it. So.
No.
Somebody also asked, what about eggshells for calcium?
Yeah, eggshells is good.
She doesn't have. All right. So I'm not understanding Veronica's question. I guess someone said she doesn't have dirt. Veronica, I'm sorry, dear. Could you please type your question or your concern to us again? I will try to catch it. Mary, can you try to keep an eye out, please?
Yeah.
We've got Miss Mary looking, but these things go by so quick, man.
So she does not have dirt amendment. I'm not sure what that means.
I'm not sure what that means either.
What about hydroponics?
I mean, I wanted to make sure. I'm going to see where she may be trying to put seeds right in the ground. Depending on what she's trying to plant, she may be okay. Because like beans, I put beans right in the ground, but I don't put them in the ground for another, a couple of weeks when it starts warming up a little bit.
I have heard of people. Of course, we're all talking in our area.
Yes.
So that.
Yeah.
It'd be totally different where you're
Right.
at.
We are in we're in southern Ohio, like down by the West Virginia, Kentucky border, down in the very southern part of Ohio.
Yeah.
I should have live in Texas. Plants start inside, ready to be planted. Was planning on raised beds. Lost my job. Okay, so she doesn't have the money for the dirt, but so she's already got plants, and she's in Texas.
Yeah.
Is your soil sandy?
Yeah.
I would say that if you already have established plants, they should be okay putting them in the ground, and then you can try to get your raised beds built again next year. I would do it just because what do you got to lose? If you're not going to build the beds and you can't get your bed project completed this year, then just scratch it for this time being and put them little plants in the ground and try to give them as many nutrients as you can. I don't know if you know anybody who has rabbits or even horse manure as a cold manure that you can some sort of an extra bit of a fertilizer that you can put on around your little plant areas.
Just about any horse barn would be more than happy to get rid of manure.
Yeah, we do the same.
Yeah.
We do the same. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. Veronica, is there any other questions that we missed so far? No? Okay.
Other than so showing the land a gun, no help. Freaky geek.
Yeah. No, that usually doesn't work. Well, last year I said my garden was so bad last year that every time I went out to look at it, sorry, you lost the phone ringing. Sorry. So let's see what else I got. I got some notes written down on here.
Well, she says, good point, thank you. Neighbors have cows. You make hot manure?
Cattle is hot manure.
It
So
is. That
Veronica,
is
you yeah, well, you know what? He's got cattle too. Let him tell you all about it while I try to figure out what the hell I got written down here.
Yeah, manure is something that it's better off to let it sit and age a while. Yeah, it is a little bit hot to put it right straight on plants if it's fresh.
From cattle. Horses.
Cattle, yeah.
Yeah, horses and rabbits are typically they're okay to just plant. You can plant right into it.
Yeah.
Cattle, on the other hand, you need to
Usually it's a little bit hot.
right, and it may burn up your new plants. But if you want to kind of expedite the fertilization process with using cattle manure, take your cattle manure home, lay it out on a really thin layer, just real thin, and then let it dry, and then kind of chop it up a little bit. You know what I mean? So that would help it not to kind of like cool down. And they would because it's considered a hot manure, and that would definitely help. Okay. Something else too that we think about when we're thinking about gardens is everybody wants to have a big gigantic garden full of all kinds of variety, and that's great. Variety, we love variety. But a lot of times people will plant stuff that they don't eat, and that's just a waste of your precious garden space. So, for instance, I need vegetables in 6 weeks. Well, I'm not going to be able to grow and have tomatoes in 6 weeks. Probably not going to have any beans in 6 weeks. Radishes, we can have radishes in like what, 31 days?
Yeah.
But the problem is I hate radishes.
Who wants to eat radishes?
I'll eat the dandelions before I plant the radishes and take up rows in my garden with something that I'm just not going to eat. I'm just not going to eat them. I'm not going to eat them. And that's just it. I'm not planting them. So, and even though, there's dudes out there who love radishes, great, have your radishes in 30 days, enjoy. That's not me. So I'm going to stick to planting only what we eat and what we need. Meaning we use a lot of tomato and tomato products like spaghetti sauce, salsa, soup starter base and stuff like that. All comes from tomatoes. So we are heavy on tomatoes in our garden. We have peppers to go along with the tomatoes in, excuse me, in salsas and sauces and whatnot. And then we always got a row of peas and stuff like that. I grow peas to encourage, if you grow a row of peas, your kids will go out and weed the garden. They'll weed the garden. They'll take them a bottle of ranch to the garden and pick peas and eat peas. And then they'll get full and they'll be like, I weeded the garden. And they didn't do anything but just go out there and eat peas. So, because they're wonderful right off the vine. So, and that's what we do. We grow things that we eat. We're going to have a little bit of a bigger potato bed this year. A lot of my past videos deal with gardening, how we start our gardens, some things we do, even this time of year to help your garden give it a little bit of a bump. I bury fish guts and stuff like that in my garden. So feel free, please, to go back into some of my older videos and watch some of the things that we do with our garden. Right now, there's a lot of ways. We're at the time of the year now where we're talking about getting your garden going, getting your plants in the ground, how to keep your plants healthy, to where they're going to produce. And later on in December, we'll sit again and talk about, now I've got a crap load of tomatoes on all at once. What do I do? And we've got plenty of videos about that. Bev's got videos. My sister Bev at our Half Acre Homestead has got videos about that. Have you guys made any?
Not a whole lot of garden.
You do more
videos.
yeah,
not a whole lot of garden.
He does awesome creek videos, by the way, about a little bit of history of the creek and stuff like that. So if you're interested in a little bit more in the Rankins Creek area, Pratts Greenhouse channel, if one of the moderators could throw a link to it, please. It's a really good place just to go and enjoy a little country life, ride along in a tractor with Ed while he's cutting hay. It's kind of like when I take you guys riding along with me when I'm running traps. It's just we just ride along and we tell a story about the good old days. And Ed's family is one of the oldest and most respected families in this part of the county. We were just talking about it ago at a porch. I'm like, Dave, if your dad got this new virus thing going around, the virus would go and buy toilet paper and quarantine itself for 2 weeks. He's tough, man. He's a tough old bird. I'm telling you, he's tough. So, but it's just, it's just one of them things to where this is the time of year. So we'll discuss preserving and canning and stuff like that when it's a little bit later on down the road. But right now we're planting our garden, so plant and try to grow what you eat. Another thing that I will say, which is something that Ed taught me, is instead of planting 100 tomato plants and hoping for the best, why not grow 36 tomato plants, take really good care of them, and get quality and not quantity. I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
you told me that like one good tomato plant will produce like 15, 16 pounds of tomatoes
it's
if you do it right.
unbelievable.
And I was doing it way wrong. So
Yeah.
once, okay, Ed, here's a question for you that I have. I've got my little plants now. They're my dinky little babies. And I take good care of them. I've grown them up. Now I'm going to put them into the garden. What's the best thing to do the very first time I put them in the ground for that first crucial week? What should I be doing with those little plants?
First of all, watch your weather. Watch your weather. And it's too early now. We're going to have another frost. There's no doubt about that in our area. But if it would happen to frost, of course, you have to cover them. It can't be plastic. Use paper or some kind of a cloth material. Plastic will burn them up if the plastic touches the leaves. So you've got to watch anything below 38 degrees in our area. Anytime I see 38, sometimes if I even see 40, but usually 38 degrees that's what I watch for. Anything that or below, I'm going to go ahead and cover them with cloth or paper. But the first thing that you should do, and that I always do, is when I plant the tomato, is water it in with a little bit of Miracle Grow solution the first time. But then do not fertilize that tomato again until you see the first little tomato on the plant. You can grow some of the most beautiful tomato plants in the world with no tomatoes if you over fertilize. So once they start producing the tomato, then start feeding them. And that doesn't take very long. So, but that would be probably the most important thing. And sucker is very important. Now that's probably a little bit of a controversy. I've seen both ways on that, but I'm a big believer in suckering plants. So the more sunlight that you can get in to a bigger tomato, the better quality tomato that's going to be. And you might not have as many tomatoes, but they'll be bigger, better tomatoes. So I sucker, and a lot of people will say 2 to 3 leaves up. I sucker all summer. I keep the suckers out.
I do too. I do. You know why I do mine? Because Ma Keeney told me sucker your plants.
And
I just
my grandmother did the same thing. Absolutely.
Ma Keeney, and she lived to be 104 and probably raised a gazillion tomatoes.
Right,
in her life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which is another thing, and we're going to get to that in a minute because I want to talk about elders. We're going to talk about the elders, and we're going to get to that. Because we go out of our way to make sure that our elders are comfortable, well-fed, warm, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. They've earned it. They have earned it. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute.
Somebody's got a question.
Go ahead.
Any advice on growing carrots in your area? I live in Meigs County, but I never have any luck.
Meigs County carrots. Okay. I do okay growing carrots. And the only thing that I do is I make sure my dirt is fluffy. I mean, I loosen that dirt as much as I can to where I can literally just take my fingers in and just move it around. I just want it as fluffy and as airy as possible so that carrot, that root, has got really, same thing I do with my potatoes, to give them room to grow. But we happen to have a guy right there.
Well, now I'm going to have to admit, carrots are my radish.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of experience with carrots. I don't eat many carrots, so I don't grow many carrots. And that's not anything that we grow in a greenhouse. But yeah, he is right. You better have fluffy soil because it'll be tough.
And I've even heard,
I would think containers would be an excellent choice for carrots.
Somebody told me, who was it? Mr. Waller, maybe? Way back in the day. He grew all his carrots, like you said, in containers. He used, he had plastic barrels that he cut in half, and he had 2 containers, you know what I mean? So that's what he grew his carrots in. And I think he said he added a little bit of sand in with his dirt, mixing in just a little bit of sand just to kind of keep that dirt from packing. So maybe that's something you can look into, and it'll work. But yeah, I agree with Ed as far as containers is what I've always used to grow carrots in. And that's how I've had my best success, because you can really keep that dirt loose and fluffy for the carrots to give them room to grow. Because if it's compacted and they can't make a carrot, then that plant's going to put all of its energy into the tops, and it's going to grow up instead of the root. So hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. That's the same thing that the old timers taught me to do with my potato plants. Like when my potato plants get up and they got a nice, beautiful big top on them, they'll go over and stomp it down. and break it and lean it over. And then the plant is concentrating on the roots and the potatoes versus the big bushy part of the top of the plant.
And then another
Sounds good.
question.
That sounds good.
You can never get him to be quiet. You can see he talks all the time. So.
Does anybody know how to make sweet potato slips?
Sweet potato slips.
The question is, does anybody know how to make sweet potato slips?
Believe it or not, that is something that we have not done. But now I do. I've seen it done, but yeah, we've not ever done it. My grandmother, of course, did it, and
I don't think I've never even grown
oh,
sweet
you
potatoes.
haven't? No, I do love sweet potatoes, and I have grown them in the garden. But basically, from what that I've seen, you can take a sweet potato, plant it in the sand, and the sprout that comes out of that potato will have a little root on it, and you can break that sprout off. And that's, but now I've not got a lot of experience with that.
And nor do I. I apologize. We don't. I don't know anything about growing sweet potatoes. And somebody just mentioned Deep South Homestead. I do believe they grow a lot of sweet potatoes, and they probably got some information. You can reach out to them, or maybe they may have a video on it already. So.
Also, do you do the beets the same way as you would do the carrots and the potatoes?
Somebody asked if we do beets the same way that we would do the potatoes and the carrots, making sure that the dirt is good and fluffy and stuff. And I would say yes.
Yeah, and one thing I will add about beets, tiny little seed, and it's very hard to put the right amount of dirt on top of that to where it will germinate and come up. And a trick that we have used on that in the past is potting soil over the top of the seed. We'll make a slightest little trench and scatter the seed, and then just put a slight amount of potting soil on top, and we've had really good luck with that, being able to germinate and pop up through the soil there. So it's worked really well for us.
Very nice. Very nice. Somebody just said, yep, Deep South Homestead. So for sweet potatoes, so there you go. Check out Deep South Homestead, and they can probably get you took care of on sweet potatoes. And beets, like you say, it's a real thin layer. The potting soil is real fluffy. You guys know it's really fluffy.
Yeah.
So just a real thin layer on top of your seeds for, and that would work really well for turnips and stuff like that. Any other kind of the root bulbs that you're trying to grow, rutabagas and so on and so forth. So there you go. I hope that helps. Any other questions?
Somebody else wanted to know if you could grow carrots in straight peat moss.
Somebody asked if we could grow carrots in straight peat moss. That I don't know. Kind of makes sense, but I wouldn't know that there would be.
Moisture might be a problem there.
Yeah, and maybe some extra. I know carrots use a lot of nutrients. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is that they use, but I don't know. I mean, try it, man. You never know. It may be the bomb. You may come out here next year and say, "Dude, I had carrots that were gigantic in that peat moss." You just, all I can say is get you a little patch of it set aside and give it a shot and see what happens. It never hurts to experiment with things. It may work. You may be on something there, or it may be. A complete and total disaster, like some of the garden experiments that I've done before. So, but that's how you learn and that's how you get better. You never know. Maybe a combination. You'll find that perfect combination of, of dirt and peat moss and so on and so forth to where you can really get on. So, I do want to touch a little bit on container gardens. A lot of folks in town, some of my friends in town have concerns that they're not going to be able to grow. They don't have a yard, so they can't grow a garden. Like I have some friends who live in cities and they have a balcony. They don't have a yard. They have a balcony on their apartment. Excuse me. So I would say to them, you can still grow a few good quality plants in containers. So if you want to grow a tomato, I would say a 5-gallon bucket would be a big enough container full of dirt for a tomato plant. And of course you want to drill some holes in the bottom of it to let some of your water drain. And as Ed was saying, when you have plants in containers, every time you water them, you're flushing that dirt out too. So you got to replenish nutrients every once in a while inside there.
Yeah, and it is important to flush.
It is.
Because salts will build up. As you're feeding, as you're putting fertilizer on the plants, you're going to be constantly adding salts to that soil. So like in the greenhouse, we have to be very careful about that. Once the plants begin to get mature, we water them really, really well when we do water them until it runs out the bottom and that flushes that excess salt out. So you want to be sure and do that. And that's the key to container gardening is nutrients. That's where everybody seems to fall short. You have to feed, and containers are a completely different ballgame than the ground, and you'll run into all kinds of problems that you don't have in the ground. So you need to keep them fed and watered well.
Yep. But as long as you do that, you can have great success.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
can have a tomato plant that could produce 18 or 20 pounds of tomatoes, and that would be one of those quality versus quantity,
And
like what we do
something else on
sometimes.
containers I want to mention. It's just as important for a container to get a little bit dry as it is to be a little bit wet. So you have to find that happy medium. There's a stage in the process of being too wet and being too dry that's perfect. So you have to make, when we water in the greenhouse, we soak after the plants get established. We soak it completely, but then we let it dry down. And you need to learn how to let a plant dry down. It's just about as important as anything, because if you just water every day and water every day and you don't pay no attention, and you have a week of cloudy weather, and that those roots are laying wet for a week, you have to adjust. Is what I'm trying to say. You need to adjust and pay attention to the soil, and be sure and let that soil dry. It's very important.
Too much water on a plant is just as
Oh,
bad
it's deadly.
sometimes, if not worse, than not enough
Yeah.
water on a plant.
Yeah.
So there is a happy medium, and again, that will come with observation and experimentation. Just water your plant and see how it acts. So how that's a good point, Ed. How would somebody what would your plant look like if it's getting too much water?
A lot of times you'll begin to see, well, the first problem you're going to have is root rot, and the plant will begin to wilt, and it'll look like it's dry. But the problem that'll be it. They'll turn yellow, and they'll start to wilt even when you do put more water on them. That's not going to fix them, because you'll start having root rot problems.
So what
So
can that plant be saved at that point?
it can. But it's tough. If you go too far, it's very, very difficult to save it without chemicals. Yeah.
Could you
Yeah.
maybe pull it and replant into some dry soil? Would that help, or is it
Yeah,
no?
that's not really going to help a whole lot, I don't think. But I mean, it would be worth a shot if it was me. But
Well, that just goes to show you it's no different than anything else that you have that you're caring for. The plants are a live organism, and you need to
yeah,
pay attention to them while you're caring for them,
it's like
and
my
they will
wife.
let you know what's going on.
My wife told me the other day, you can't water a plant too much. You can water a plant too often. So that's the problem. You could put 10 gallons of water on that plant and let it run out the bottom. And as long as you let that dry back down before you water it again, you'll have better success. It's watering too often that's what'll get you in trouble.
There you have it, folks.
Somebody had a nice little tip here, that said you can put landscape fabric in the bottom of the bucket so you won't lose your dirt when you're watering them.
That is a pretty good pretty good tip. Sorry. Somebody in the comments had mentioned that if you're going to be using buckets or containers to grow, if you put a little bit of landscape fabric in the bottom of your container and then put your dirt on top of that, as you water your plant, you're not losing your dirt through the holes on the bottom. That's a good tip. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, do we have any other questions, concerns, comments, tips, any of that kind of stuff about the beginning processes of gardening, or putting your plants into the ground? We're getting to that time of year to where we're all thinking about the gardens. And this is going to be, I believe, like Ed, I believe this is going to be an important year for a quality garden. It looks like we may have some issues to deal with here in the coming months, and we just want to make sure that everybody who needs to grow a little bit of food on their own knows how to do it. And like I said, there's lots of great YouTube channels out there that have really good gardening tips, and you need to look for something that's specific in your area that you live. Us being in Southern Ohio, what works well in our garden is probably not going to work well in New Mexico. Just not. So there are all kinds of YouTube channels and information here on YouTube that will let you kind of do a little bit of research and so on to find out what's best for your area.
Somebody wants to know how to keep the deer out of your garden.
Well, yeah, the deer do cause a problem sometimes there. Stephen, good to see you, by the way, brother. A lot of times just a simple little fence, a little bit of a deterrent, and they'll move on. Sometimes they're pretty persistent, and you gotta be vigilant and stay up at night. I do not suggest shooting them this time of year. Please don't go around shooting the deer right now. We'll get into that here also in a little bit. Well, maybe I may have to wait for another time. We're already at 45 minutes. And that's okay. I mean, that's okay. It's what we're here for. Maybe we'll do this again, next week or in another few days or something. Ed, that sound good? We want to do that? Well, and we'll get into more hunting and so on and so forth. But there are some things that you can put around your garden that is a deterrent. Coffee grounds. A lot of times animals don't like the coffee ground scent. I think Will Hill just wrote in there you can put some soap, ivory soap around your garden as a deterrent.
Ronnie said you can do the jingle bell like Christmas bells.
Yeah, you can put some strings of bells and motion sensor lights and stuff that are out there that'll kick on when they come in there, and sometimes that'll scare them off. And I'm sure that there's some stuff in the comments going through here that you can refer to, but there are ways to keep them away from your produce without having to shoot them, especially this time of year when they either have babies or are about to have babies. And we may just have to make that a whole separate video, because there are, like I say, with the issues that we're having in the country, in the entire country right now. I've heard and seen a lot of folks that we're just going to go out and shoot deer. Well, wait a minute. That's you gotta think about that first, and we'll just make a whole nother video about that here in the next couple of days. We'll just do another chat about that. We'll keep this one right now as gardening and growing. So while we're waiting on another question to come in, I told you I was going to talk about the elders. Our elders on the creek matter. They saved me when my wife got sick and I didn't have crap and I didn't have any money and I had 4 dinky little kids and a handicapped wife to try to figure out how to take care of. If my elders on this creek wouldn't have taught me how to do the things that I do, I wouldn't have made it. I would not have made it. His father and his brother, Uncle Bill, Ma Keeney, who are both, like 3 out of 4 of them are gone now. If it wasn't for them and the knowledge that they taught me and the questions that they answered for me, I wouldn't have made it. I would not have known what to do, how to do it, what to do it with, and then what to do with it after I did whatever it was that I was doing. So our elders have earned me taking them whatever it is that I can whenever they need it. They keep them out of the stores right now. We bake bread and take it to them. We do meat and take it to them. We do, help them weed their gardens. If they can't get out, we'll plant a garden for them. Whatever we can do when the elders need something, the younger guys are on it. We just do it. We just do it. And I've talked to all of the elders, as a matter of fact, out and down the creek about the current situation in the country right now and what, the whole situation is going on, asking for advice, asking what we need to do. What do I need to do? And of course, they're always saying, go look out for so-and-so, go look out for so-and-so. And then the other person says, well, go look out for that guy, So but that's what we're doing. And that's what I think everybody should be doing. It makes me mad when I see people say, well, it's only the elderly that are affected. Man, how many people do you think Ma Keeney fed during the war and during the Depression?
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of people that they, not only did the elder gentlemen on our creek go and fight to keep the country free, all the elder ladies on our creek was cooking and feeding and raising kids and taking care of folks from town who didn't have anything and growing gardens and canning and teaching people how to do. They've earned the right to sit in their house and have us bring them stuff, in my opinion, and I wish more people thought like that. They've earned it. And by God, that's what we feel the same. He's laughing because we feel the same way. They've earned it. They've earned it. They are a very important resource. If anybody in the country knows how to make it through some really hard times right now, it's the elders, because they've been there, done that. They've been there, done that.
Yeah. Worse. Worse.
But yeah, worse. So, and they know how to garden. So you want to take your elderly neighbor lady, oh, I'm going to get her a loaf of bread. Okay, that's great. Take her a loaf of bread. She'll love it. If you take her a bag of flour, a little bit of sugar, and some yeast, she can make bread for a week. I guarantee you she knows how to make bread. So when you're considering and you're going to take care of some of your elderly neighbors, some of the elders in your neighborhood, remember, they know stuff. They know how to deal with a little bit at all at once. So take them some ingredients. If you take them some sauce and pasta and a tomato or something like that. Just the ingredients. They know what to do with it.
Mhm.
Now, if they have mobility issues and so on and so forth, uh, then you can give them a little more assistance. But most of the time, when you call one of them and say, "Hey, is there anything you need?" "No, honey, I don't need anything," and they don't. They don't need it. Is there anything that you would like to have? Now that's a whole nother question for them because they got a cup of oatmeal. They've got food. They don't need food because they have a cup of oatmeal. And that's true. Am I wrong?
That's right.
They're going to tell you they don't need anything.
Yeah.
But if you ask them, is there anything I'm going to the store? Is there anything that you would like to have? Well, I could use some butter and, maybe a little jar of yeast if you come across and some sugar. So remember, when you're talking with elders are very proud people. They have an entire lifetime
Mhm.
of experience. They know what to do if you bring them raw ingredients. They know what to do with it, and they will probably teach you a couple of things about situations like this right now, with bad economies and making do with what you have, and so on and so forth. So, give the elders the props that they deserve, please, please, please. They've earned it. And like that. I'm sorry about that, by the way. That's one of my pet peeves, and
Yeah. Yeah, and he's right. A lot of them are too proud. They're never going to ask you for help. That's for sure. So you kind of have to make the effort.
mm-hmm,
Um, and a lot of times they won't take the help when you make the effort, but
mm-hmm.
still, still make it.
They will, and a lot of times they will. And so, like, I'll give you an example. If you take somebody a loaf of bread, all right, maybe throw in a little stick of butter. Okay, throw a stick of butter in there and see what the reaction is. So if they pick up that butter and go, "Oh, thank you. I don't have any butter, blah, blah," then right away they're gonna need more butter next week. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff. I had one of our elders who had mentioned to me the other day that she really could use a Coca-Cola because it's been a long time since she's had one, and that's one of her comfort foods. Well, by golly, today she got her a nice Coca-Cola, and I mean, just to look on her face and it just is what it is. So those kind of things. Listen to what they're saying. Be respectful, and kind of word your questions respectfully. His father, anytime I'm within 10 feet of his dad, I take my hat off. I come to him with my hat in my hand because that's a show of love and respect. He's earned it. I do that with Mr. Dingus. Uncle Bill passed away back in the early summer. With Mr. Waller, I take my hat off. I always offer to shake their hand. It's just, I guess we're just dumb old hicks, I guess, but that's just how we are with our elders. We always respect them, and when they talk, we listen and we learn. So. And I've already talked to everybody about what we're going to do. So, and we've got our plan out here on the creek. We're not going to share everything as far as what our elders have discussed amongst themselves on how we're going to handle certain things that come up. But that's for every community to decide for itself. And so when you're having your community meetings and stuff, please include your elders because they probably have been through something very similar to and they have a lot of information and they're just full of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. They have done without. That's for sure.
They have, and for a long time, and they know, they know a lot. Just sit and talk with them, and you'll see. Okay, so the hunting, we're gonna wait. We'll do that again some point here in the next few days when Ed gets a minute and I get a minute. We're both, we're just, it's. I mean, I hate to keep telling you guys that we're really, really busy, but we are extremely busy right now. Ed's got his greenhouse going. They have all but shut our fishing down for my business. But I'm still am doing other things, other responsibilities that I have out here on the creek. I'm still trying to look after, everything else that I have going on, including my family and so on. So we will we will try to get Ed over here again and sit down and discuss how our creek is handling the hunting and the fishing and potential poachers and folks and stuff like that. Now, we're not even going to get into it. We're not even. We'll just wait because we're already at almost an hour. And I apologize about taking so much time, guys, talking with this. But I think this is important. I really wanted to make sure that anybody who wanted or had any questions about starting a garden or starting plants, because we're just talking about starting everything from scratch. We'll discuss what to do with it once it starts coming on later on in the summer. But right now, we need to get plants in the ground or start to get them ready to be put into the ground. It's still a little early for the ground here in southern Ohio. Lawrence County is where we are. It's still a little bit early for us. A couple of weeks, depending on the weather. We're probably looking
There's
Well,
certain,
Uncle Bill
certain
said
things,
Mother's Day. He always said Mother's
yeah,
Day.
Mother's Day, yeah.
So-
Certain things you can be getting out now, though.
Yeah.
Broccoli, cabbage, any of your cold crops. Now is the time. If you get those out now, and like where we're at now, we've got 10 or 15 days
Hmm.
on our forecast that no really cold temperatures. So now's the time to get them out, let them get acclimated,
Hmm.
and then when we get down, if it does get below freezing or get really cold, they'll be fine. But if you like cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, any of that kind of thing,
Celery. We've got celery.
get them out
That's
there
coming up.
because they're going to do a lot better for you.
Lettuce and spinach.
Yeah, before the bugs show up, you'll have
Yeah.
nice.
Lettuces, spinaches, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They can deal a little bit better with the cold. And the earlier you get them started, the earlier you'll be able to start. Like if you we plant a salad greens bed where there'll just be different kinds of greens. You go out there and start picking them, and it's something that'll keep replenishing until it gets really, really hot anyway.
Yeah.
And then you can do it again in the fall. But this is what it is. So we're going to have one last call for any kind of questions about plants and or gardening, starting a garden, starting seeds.
We got a
Excuse me.
question.
Uh,
Said we got one question.
we got one more question. Go ahead.
Do you grow any elderberries and how do you start them?
Yes, we have elderberries. We simply started them by cutting a branch off of an elderberry bush, sticking it in the dirt, and it started growing another elderberry bush. And that's how we started ours. I don't know, Ed, do you have?
I don't know. We haven't done any
What do you mean you
but
don't know? You plant plants for a living. How you not know?
but I'll tell you one, that kind of sparked one thing there. You can root just about anything. And we were talking earlier about the suckering tomatoes.
Mhm.
Very easily, you can take those little suckers and root those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And make a whole new plant.
Oh, yeah.
A question that I have is when you take your little tomato plant from your little square container, your starter container, whatever kind of starter container you have, when you go to plant that, how deep should you plant that stem in the ground? Because I've always heard you can plant it all the way up to the
Oh, yeah.
leaves, and it'll root all the way down.
It will. And I've heard a lot of people, like a lot of times we'll have plants that stretch and they'll be really, really tall when we sell them. And I've heard of a lot of people actually laying the plant, digging a ditch, laying the plant in the ditch and bending it up to where you just have about that much above the ground. And it will root all the way down the stem.
Does that make a more solid, healthier plant, you think?
Yeah, it does. I mean, yeah, that's nice.
Maybe you can do an example of
Yeah, here.
suckering.
We'll see.
because
I got a
don't
little
know
plant.
everybody
I
knows
said,
how to sucker.
I said a lot of my tomato plants with post hole digger. If they're tall,
I do too.
yeah, that deep. So,
I do
yeah.
too. So here's one of our little tomato plants that we've got started. And when I plant this plant, it's already getting a little sucker there. See that?
Mhm. Yeah.
When I plant this plant, I'm going to plant it to about right. See that first set of leaves right there, that first stem. I'm going to probably put it into the ground to about right here. And that way, it's going to have this extra part of stem that's going to start rooting and growing. Not only is that going to give this plant extra nutrients from the dirt, it's going to make it a little bit more sturdy in the ground as far as windstorms blowing it over and so on and so forth. So
And there's your sucker right there.
yeah, and you don't know if you can see right in.
Yeah.
If I can get that in the camera
Right
there.
between the main stem and the main limb is where your suckers will be.
Right
That's
there.
what needs to come out.
That little dinky leaf sticking up out of the corner of that is called a sucker. And those are called suckers because all they do is suck nutrients away from the rest of the
And
plant.
it's going to hurt you. If you let them go too long, they're going to have little blooms on them and they're going to have little tomatoes on them. It's going to hurt you to do that if you let it go too long, but you'll have much nicer tomatoes if you get rid of it.
Now, should I go ahead and pinch them off right now, or is it still a little early?
No, you can do it anytime.
Oh, you
Anytime.
suckers are
Yeah,
going to get it.
it'll be a lot easier
As soon as the video's over, I'm coming for you. Yeah, so what we're going to do, we're just going to pinch them. So I'm going to take my thumbnail and my forefinger, and I'm just going to reach in there, and right at the stem top, I'm going to punch like that. Just pinch that little leaf right off and drop it down.
She's gone.
And it's gone. There you go. And that may regrow before the plant is through its whole cycle. That little sucker probably will pop back up again and then pop back up again. Just keep pinching it off. That way the plant itself is not wasting any kind of nutrients or liquids on that sucker. And sometimes I'll admit, even sometimes on some of my tomato plants, I will clip a couple of extra limbs, like
I do too.
coming up through here. Once this plant gets established, I may cut one of these here off, simply so that the plant is concentrating more on the bigger, stronger. It'll produce more tomatoes. It'll produce more flowers. because it's not concentrating on the greenery at that time. It's concentrating on the fruit.
And if you ever visit a hydroponic greenhouse, you'll notice the tomatoes are basically they're a vine, and as that tomato grows, the production's going on at the top. So yeah, it doesn't hurt a bit once the production ends at the bottom. I've seen hydroponic greenhouses where they'll be strung 30 or 40 feet across the greenhouse.
Right.
The production is at the end. So
There you go. There you have it. So is everybody good? Everybody, any more questions? Miss Mary, do we have any more questions to scroll through that you know of?
I got one that says, how long till you have fruit from an elderberry?
Uh,
I think around July, August is when they start turning color. And getting
Yeah,
sharp.
they'll start fruiting. They fruit. Okay, so you have blackberries that usually come on around the 4th of July. I think elderberries are the next in line, usually end of July, beginning of August. That sound about right? Will be the next set of berries that come on. You have blackberries and raspberries, and then you'll have elderberries coming on, and then you start getting into your later fall stuff. But yeah, that and once you get the stem to root, that takes I would say it's going to take about 7 to 10 days before you'll start noticing little root nubs on there. And we start ours sometimes in just water with a little bit of what they call the root starter solution. We put that on the part that we've clipped, and then put root starter solution, put it in water. You'll see the root nub start. Then you can go ahead and transfer it to some fluffy dirt and start taking care of it. And it'll put on roots, and then you'll start seeing new leaves and new growth.
They
And
like moist soil too.
yes, they do like moist soil. They like a little bit of a shady area as well. Typical berry, typical berry. So, okay, guys. Well, I hope that helps. Ed and I are going to get back at it. We will try to sit down again. I don't know when. I will try to keep up with after this video post. There's going to be questions and comments that come in. I will try to keep up with them and answer questions. No promises. I'll do the best I can. And Ed and I will try to sit down again in the next few days, and we'll let you know via Facebook or something when we're going to sit down again for another live coffee chat with the hillbillies, and we'll talk about hunting and fishing and preserving and meat and what to do when you get an animal down and stuff like that. So I really hope this helped. Ed, thank you very, very much, man.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for what you do, helping folks with the greenhouse. The greenhouse is going to open up on the 1st of April. The first couple of hours is going to be only for elders and the elderly folks to come to the greenhouse and get their garden plants.
And we are going to offer a curbside service. So
Yes.
if you're afraid to get out of your car, we're more than happy. We'll take orders and we'll get what you need. So,
And even if we got to deliver them, we've even talked about some of the old folks who need their garden plants. Him and I will jump in our trucks and bring them to them if that's what they need to happen. We'll do whatever we need to do to make sure that folks get their plants for their garden this year. But for the first couple hours on April 1st, and every day there, Monday through Saturday?
Yes. Well, after we really get going. But for now, yes, it'll be Monday through Saturday. So we're going to do 10 to 12 for anyone over 60. And that will be curbside service. And then after that, we'll let everyone else in. And we will be sanitizing all doorknobs and everything like that as we, the first thing every morning. So we're going to do everything that we can to try to keep everybody safe. So
we will try to, always try to take those proper precautions. We don't want anybody who's trying to improve their situation have something bad happen because of sanitary issues. So, but you can visit them on Facebook, Pratts Greenhouse. You can they have a YouTube channel, Pratts Greenhouse YouTube channel. We will try to, if the moderators could maybe leave a link somewhere for their YouTube channel. You can go and visit, and you can ask questions via, Messenger and stuff like that to Ed or his wife Trina, and we'll try to get they'll try to get you answered. And keep in mind, give them a little bit of time to get the question or the comment and to read it, because everybody, including you all, I'm sure, we've all got a full plate right now trying to keep things ready, prepared, and moving forward. So. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, that is going to do it. We're going to wrap it up here, and we will let you know again when we're going to do this again. So I thank you very very much for watching. You guys, please stay safe. Love your neighbor, and have a great rest of the evening. So
take care, guys.
Thanks for watching. God bless. And the end.